see, the answer to everything is Jesus. And though you already know this in your head and agree with it, for many years you've added things to Christ, either by your own doing or by listening to others tell you to do so, and as a result, you probably have lived in defeat. I would not be surprised if 99% of Christians live as I just described. For them, Christianity has become a Jesus Plus club, that membership is earned by what you can do for God in addition to what Jesus has already done for you. So much of what we'll be doing here at First is to remove all of the pluses that you've accumulated in your life. Now let me explain what I mean in another way. Let me give you a diagram. When you became a Christian, you knew a gap existed between you and God. God was here and you were down here, and when the revelation came of what you were apart from Christ, you instantly saw the impossible distance between you and God. So in order to bridge that gap, Christ came into your life, and now through Him, you could become one with God. But sometime, I don't know when, maybe a few months or weeks after conversion, or perhaps the very next day, you attempted to grow in the Christian life. Now that's a natural response, right? If you want to get better at golf or math or photography or anything in the world for that matter, you make progress the more effort you put into it. In fact, the more time you spend learning and practicing, the better your skills become. So naturally, you could assume the same would happen in your Christian life. You spend a lot of time learning what to do, like reading your Bible and praying and studying, attending church, witnessing, fellowshipping with other believers, ministering or whatever, and then you practice the disciplines that went along with them. You practice how to pray. You practice how to witness. You practice how to relate with God through a 15-minute daily quiet time. And as you did all these things, you probably encountered a little bit of success. Now I imagine that as you went, you felt that you were becoming a little closer to God. You probably even gave up some sinful habits along the way. And why wouldn't you? Because after all, through all your efforts, in your mind at least, you were getting closer to God. So close that you might have even thought, like a woman once told me, that you no longer sin. Now, what this woman meant, and what you might have meant as well, is that in comparison to your behavior when you became a Christian, what it is now, you're not sinning that much. In fact, you're sinning less and less. Now look at this board. This is a simple diagram that illustrates the philosophy of most Christian teaching. The goal of most teaching is to try to improve yourself or your behavior. So you have a problem, let's say it's fear. At certain times, fear of some sort overwhelms you. Well, the answer you were given to attack the problem in a Christian way was to go attack your fear. So what did you do? You began to memorize all the verses on the subject. You studied hard. You prayed about it. You got into an accountability class. In fact, you went through all of the motions that you had to, hoping that doing so would fix your problem of fear. Yet you might have even gone so far as to try to talk yourself into the fact that you were actually getting better. But in the end, you still have the same old fear problem. Now, you might even double down and change churches. Maybe a new church or a different denomination could fix your problem. But all you do in exchange of doing this, of moving from one church to the next, is just to exchange the pluses. One plus here, a different plus here. And in the same way as all that was happening, you became confused as to why the Christian life just wasn't working for you. Well, let me explain to you why it doesn't work. Go back and look at this diagram. All the time you were adding things to Jesus in hopes of narrowing the gap between you and God, what was happening? The Jesus that once started this big in your life shrunk to just a fraction of the size. In your pursuit to narrow the gap between you and God, you lost Jesus. Now, I don't mean you lost your salvation. I mean you lost the very power that you once had. You lost it because in your self-effort, you narrowed the gap between you and God. You didn't need Jesus anymore. The moment you added your first plus to Jesus was the first step you took toward the defeat that you repeatedly find yourself in, whatever that defeat might be. Now, I don't care who the teacher is. If the teaching requires you to do something in hopes of becoming better, following it only leads you into defeat. So what is the proper way to measure growth? I mean, what is it that if you had more of in your life, things would change? Well, is it more Bible reading? Well, now listen, I love reading the Bible and encourage you to do so, but only if you read it through the grid of Jesus. I know a lot of people who read a lot of the Bible, yet none of the Bible seems to live in them. So more Bible reading won't necessarily ensure that you'll grow. Nor will more praying, more witnessing, more study, more whatever. The only thing that you could possibly have more of that would actually grow your Christian life is more of Jesus.